interview with the author of Crash Course. And I am hoping that he is just a few minutes late. We'll see. I just sent a message through. But the reason I started was because in the event that something came up, I read this book and made some notes because what this book is about, it's about this man who dreamt of starting this company, being an entrepreneur, and everything that went wrong. But there is like a key reason things went really wrong, and I'm going to talk about that. He does eventually come to that conclusion by the end of the book, and then decided to write a book about it, saying that there was enough books on how to be successful with a startup, but he was going to explain how he failed. So I'm waiting. Let me just see if I have a message back, because this was set up in advance, but I touched base with them yesterday, and I'm just making sure that he can get in. Let's see here. Let's check my... Oh, here we go. Okay. Hello. Let me see if I can make this to the gallery. There we are. Hi, can you hear me? You are on mute, so you'd have to unmute yourself. And we are already live because...
Okay. Hi, Caroline.
Hi, how are you?
Doing great, and you?
Good. Are you going to turn your camera on?
Sure.
Oh, okay. Hi.
Let's do this. Hello.
So I was just telling them a little bit about your book here. Do you want to introduce yourself and let everybody know a little bit about yourself and why you wrote this book?
Sure. So I'm Ricardo. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an investor. I've invested in over 50 startups, and I'm the author of Crash Course. And Crash Course is a book about the emotional journey of the entrepreneur. Yeah, the book that you're showing. It's a book that it's a companionship book. There's lots of inspiration books, and there's lots of books about startups and how to build startups. But I don't think that there are books about the person that needs to build a startup. And I think that's what makes this book different. I don't really tell you how to scale, how to do product market fit, how to hire your first people. There's lots of books about that. But what I really care about is about the person and the humanity of entrepreneurship, about the journey and the ups and downs of the entrepreneur.
Okay, so your parents, your mother is a lawyer, correct? Your dad?
She was a lawyer for 15 years and then a judge for, let's say, 25. Yes.
Okay, and your dad, he's a doctor?
He retired a few years ago, but he was a doctor for his whole life, for about 14 years.
Okay, so growing up, did you always say that? Did you ever think you wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer or something like that, or did you always say no, you didn't want to do that?
I know I didn't want to do that, but I didn't know what I wanted. I think I was more clear in realizing that what I saw around me did not resonate. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I didn't know. I didn't hear the word entrepreneur until I was 28, I believe. So that's really, really late, until I was doing an MBA at Duke. But yes, I grew up with my uncles and my parents, who were either teachers or they worked for teachers, doctors, and they worked for, all of them worked for, most of them worked for government. Same with my cousins. Either they work for the government or they stayed in corporate America, being engineers, in corporate in Spain or Europe for many, many years. So there's not an entrepreneur in my family. I think I always wanted freedom. I always wanted something else. Again, I didn't really know what it was, but this idea of having to ask for permission to go on holidays or live paycheck by paycheck. It wasn't something that sounded very what's the word?
You wanted freedom to do what you
Yes.
wanted to do, work on your own terms, right? And you didn't want a boss, you didn't want someone telling you what to do. And that all sounded great to you, but you did get your first job, right? And then they had to let you go, and your position was no longer in the company anymore, right? They were phasing it out. And
Yeah.
it was at that point that you said you were going to embark on this idea of yours now, which is how did you come up with this plush idea? And the reason I ask is because, as a mother, and they always say, our mother is, oh my gosh, I can't even speak now, but we see a need, okay? So as mothers, a lot of us, maybe a lot of products, you mentioned like a Miracle Mop, and do you know Joy, I think her name is Magnano, she invented those hangers that the clothes they don't fall off. It has like some kind of material on it. And all of these products, a lot of them, necessity is the mother of invention. That's what I'm looking for. Is because like you see a need. So your clothes are falling off in the closet. Oh my gosh, I wish somebody would invent something. And so she comes out with these hangers or a mop or a rolly kit that holds all the kids' Legos. So you didn't have kids and you weren't married. And so, but you started to invent a toy, which is a little bit different for me because I think that may be where you went wrong. Do you know what I mean? Because you didn't, it wasn't something like you thought. How did you come up with that idea? Let me know. How did you say, I'm going to do this toy?
Well, I don't know how far we're gonna go, but I think I shared in the book that when I was doing my MBA at Duke, I realized that I don't know if it was a comment or some conversation that I overheard or some behavior, and it made me think that, wow, Americans are so patriotic. If they could, they would go to bed with their own country. So that's when I first thought about the idea of a huge, say, toy or
pillow, almost like a
item.
plush pillow. Yeah, right. Kind of.
Yeah. But then that idea died, and then because I wasn't very interested in pursuing that purpose, that intention. But then a couple of years later, I was exchanging ideas with one of my friends, and we were clear that we wanted to start a company. And then I revisited this idea of toys in the shape of countries with the purpose of awakening curiosity in kids about the world. And that's something that I was passionate about. I didn't have kids, but it made a lot of sense to me. The idea was that to create friends from all over the world, so kids will be able to relate to the world through having a friend, even though it was a toy friend. Mm-hmm. And at the beginning, we had really good feedback, and it felt very promising. But yes, it did not start from a need. It came up from an idea. And then, yes, my mind always was in the mode of trying to find the right market. Was it toys, because we were in some toy stores? Was it travel? Was it gifts? Was it education? We were in some schools. So we had some very small wins in all these different markets, but we didn't really have a clear path for scaling. Yes.
Okay, so when I was reading your book, I was taking some notes, and it was funny because when I got to the end of your book, you came to some of the conclusions that I had written down. Like I said, I think you put the cart before the horse, and that you went like whole hog into developing these Plushkies, was what they were called, right? Before you just developed a few as a sample and tested your market. But most of all, was there a market for this is like the forefront of what you needed to find out, right? Is there going to be a market for this product? And I think that along the way, you kept finding out that there really wasn't the customer base that you needed, but you just couldn't give up on this idea. So instead of like changing this thing, or you just it's like a bad relationship sometimes. You've been in it so many years, you just keep saying, well, I can't leave this. I've been in this relationship 13 years, 14 years. And then eventually you did. You had to abandon this. And I think there were, you had a good drive and you were dedicated and you had a passion, but the product just wasn't there. And I think that you were encouraged along the way, maybe by some people, but then you were very disappointed when they didn't follow through and meet with you or place their orders or do any of that stuff that you had hoped, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, lots of things. Yeah, lots of things there. I think being an entrepreneur is very ambiguous because it's not like it's not like you always have a yes or you always have a no. Mm-hmm. Very often there's lots of mixed signals, and let's say maybe for every yes you get 8 no's. So yes, we didn't find the market, but I also think that what I told myself is that the fact that I didn't find one didn't mean that there wasn't one. So this is I don't know if it's a mind trick to keep you motivated, because maybe, I don't know, someone else with more business knowledge or better contacts or better understanding of the toy industry would have found a market. So it's very hard for me to categorically say that there wasn't. But at the same time, at one point, I had to stop thinking in terms of the company or the market. I mean, I had to start thinking about myself. I wasn't, so I spent all my savings, then I spent my loan, and then it was time to, I guess, ask for another loan because I wasn't raising money.
Right.
And then question, what did I want for myself? So I think that's a big distinction between, was there a market? I don't know if there was, I couldn't find it. But at the same time, again, at what point do you stop optimizing for your company and you start optimizing for myself? And that's the decision that I had to make. That it wasn't the life that I wanted anymore. And at the same time, the market didn't seem to be missing my product very much.
Right, and then you even like you just kept going, and then at one point, like really when you were getting, I was reading your book, and I mean, like your partner kind of, he changed from being, I don't know if you were 50-50 in the beginning, but then he was 1/3, you were 2/3, and then he got a job with a tech company out in California and told you, look, this is too much for me, I can't keep doing this, I'm going to have to bail on this. And so that was a blow to you. And then you hired a business coach as a last ditch effort there, right? And you were really liking this business coach, and he agreed to go to, was it the toy show in New York?
Toy show.
Mm-hmm. Okay. At the Jacob Javits, was it Jacob Javits Center? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've been, so then you were going there, and your friend comes in from California to go to this, takes time off, and your business coach goes out the night before, stays out, and is dragging himself to a shower while you guys are like, let's go, we got to go, right?
Yes. Well, we were patiently waiting. More than dragging him, we were patiently waiting, trying to understand why it was taking so long. But yeah, it's one of those scenarios in which it's clear who cares. It's clear who needs to be the responsible one and the mature one. Yes, other people may have their best intentions and they may want to help, but at the same time, they have other interests. Right. I think this guy hadn't been to New York in a while, and he had some friends in town that he wanted to go meet. So yeah, it's like everything. I think commitment. Is huge. It's not the only quality. I think for success, you may commitment or grit or determination. It's the number one quality. Then you need many others. But yes, for me it's very clear that the founders are the ones who really care about what they're doing, who are really committed, who understand it, who give it all the meaning in the world. And yes, sometimes you may get help, and I got a lot of help along the way, and even service providers. There's providers who may want to help you, but then when there's a challenge or a difficulty, it's just easier to walk away, and that happened a lot as well. So I wouldn't think that in general I met people with bad intentions. I think mostly it was good intentions, just that when things got a little hard, I didn't think they found the ROI of committing, and they went somewhere else.
But see, that's all the thing is, everybody is what is in it for me, and nobody is going to build your business like you. No one is going to be dedicated to it like you. And if, you have to be there. Like, you can't depend on other people, especially when you're building a business, to build your business for you. You can hire people, but you're still like, entrepreneurship is a lot of work, a lot of sacrifice. But it's, the rewards can be very good, but they don't all succeed. And some people, more than that, don't have the drive to, like, many entrepreneurs don't take vacations for years and years and years. And it's years before they can pay themselves a salary and all of that stuff. And it's, some people say, you know what, I'll go back and work for so-and-so and get a check and get my 3-4 weeks of vacation a year, and I'll do that, So, because it is hard, there is a lot of sacrifice, and you don't know. So you really have to have that passion. You had the passion for the product, but it seemed like, and I will tell you, when you said, I wanted to be an entrepreneur, I wanted to build a business, I wanted to make money, and then the product was the third thing. See, and I just feel like the product should be the first thing. And then you should say, I've got this tremendous product. Everybody's going to want this product. And so now I want to build a business to launch this product. That's just the way I feel. You have the product should be the first thing. Like, because everybody, we need to make money. We want to make money. And, if we can do it on ourselves, I think some people just have an entrepreneurial mindset. I always have. And if I go anywhere, like we go to an island with the channel, and we see things there. And the minute I see them, I go, there is a need for this service, that service, this service. Why isn't anybody doing this? I said, we could stay here all year and make this business. So I don't know if everybody doesn't see that, or they just don't want to do it. But that's what I'm saying. A product or a service that someone needs is where, like, I would start. Because I think then you already have that market. You already have that need for it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. No, I can see that. So I agree with that. I think that's it. That's the place to start. I'm an investor as well. And of course, you want to see that people are building things that are needed or wanted, or people are ready to buy. We didn't really start like that, but at the same time, I did not build something that I thought nobody was going to want.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You had passion, yes.
But I thought, I had passion for what I was doing, but I also thought that there was going to be a market. I didn't build it just, otherwise I would have built 2,000 units. I got it wrong. It looks like something for sure. It looks like I scaled too early. I scaled a company before proving that there was a market. And I think that's a mistake. But I did believe that it was a great way for, again, to raise global children. Because I could see an app connecting the kids of the world. I could see movies. I could see what I guess when entrepreneurs are so passionate about their product or their company, that they see it everywhere, and we all have these grandiose visions. So I could see a theme park, and I could see how, and it happened. So it's, because I don't think it's black and white. I saw how some kids really got into it, how we got some really good feedback from some parents. So I think that's why for me it's always very ambiguous. It's hard for me to get very categoric the conclusions, because I think in a way I never know if I never know. Again, I never really know. But yes, where I do agree 100% is that things need to be in order. And before scaling a business, it's good to make sure that you have a business.
Right. So, I mean, like, okay, so with the United States, let's just take that Plushkey. It was one Plushkey of the United States. It wasn't individual states.
It right? Was a one for the...
One for the United States. See, I think, just my mind, I don't know if you... where do you live now? Do you...
I'm in Puerto Rico now. I live between Puerto Rico and Barcelona.
Okay. So, but like in the United States, when people travel, there are these magnets that they used to collect, okay, and they were for every state, and they were in different colors, and they would be in every rest area. And there would be so many people that would collect that little piece, Arizona, California. So I almost think that if you had done like smaller little states with little legs, maybe, because people like cute things and arms, and then they would collect the state, because like once a lot of kids don't travel outside of the United States, they don't go to Spain, they don't go to Europe. But they may go even on the East Coast to these different states. And if there's something just like I have a friend that collected those little collector spoons every state she went to. It would have given them maybe a little something that they could collect. And I know you had good ideas. I think your ideas were good with the passport and collecting little stamps for it somehow, and then apps and games or something, and booklets. But then you had a problem with the booklets, because then somebody said one of your characters, she didn't like that he was a cab driver because it would hit a stereotype, right? Why wasn't he a doctor? Why wasn't he a lawyer? Why did you make him a cab driver? So, yeah, you know what I mean? So there's all those bumps along the way, but, it's hard. It's hard to do, find out what it is, the thing, but like just how people collected Beanie Babies, and maybe the price point might have been, I don't know what your price point was. What was the price for the United States?
$29.99. I think around $29.
Right. So let's say if you made the individual states and they were 9, or like a Beanie Baby used to be. I don't know. I'm just thinking that maybe that would have had a bigger appeal where they could collect the different states. I don't know.
I thought about that. I know, sure. I thought about that. That was one of the things that I saw very quickly. Anything that has a shape, we could do a toy and a character. And I thought states would be next. And I know how Americans are so passionate about their universities, and I thought we could do shapes of college campuses. So I could see how we could go smaller, because yes, if it's smaller, there's less of a population that resonate with it, but at the same time they're usually more passionate. So yeah, I think it was a good idea. We just never got to see the whole vision.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the idea is there because people do like, they do collect, states, birds. Like, there's so many things like in those souvenir shops about the states. Like, even in New York, they have the Statue of Liberty and different iconic landmarks, right? So yeah, I mean, and every you have the St. Louis Arch, or you have the San Francisco Bridge or the Brooklyn Bridge, and I mean, it was an idea. I see like where you had your idea, and it can be hard to give up an idea. But I think had you not did a full production, you would, like, if you had just had some samples, maybe earlier, do you think if you didn't have full production that you would have like redesigned your product if you didn't have everything had already been produced?
I think, yeah, in the ideal world and in retrospect, it would have been smarter to go slower and start with less units. What happened is that we wanted a very small production, but we were told by different factories, all of them, they told us it was 3,000 minimum order quantity. And we negotiated, they said 3,000 was the minimum, and this was for all the factories. It felt like collusion. And then it was, we thought we need to start with at least 4 toys. Let's do 12,000 units. So I think in retrospect, yes, I would have found that I would have looked for a way to then pay 10x more per unit, but only do maybe, I don't know, 50 units instead of 300 units.
Right.
Even though it wouldn't have made sense at a cost per unit. But yes, it would have. I would have managed that differently. what also happened was that every time that we were in a junction between going one way or the other, our heart or our passion was in doubling down whatever it was. Okay, this is what we need to do. We'll do it and then we'll sell it. So we were more, I don't know, interested or concerned with moving forward and going big, just moving fast, than taking time to do things right.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. And you didn't, thankfully, this did not destroy your friendship with your friend Juan, right?
No, we're very good friends now. We went through, no, we were always very close. And I think there's one conversation that I share in the book in which we weren't understanding of each other. I thought he wasn't putting his fair share in the business. And I told him, and his response was he'd rather be completely out. And if he was putting any share, it's because he was doing it out of friendship, not because he believed in the company anymore.
Right.
And that was a really hard conversation. But at the same time, I totally changed my perception from someone that's, let's say, taking advantage to someone that's just giving to me, even though he's doing completely out of generosity because he's not expecting anything in return.
Right. He was in it
Yes.
for you, but he had a lot of going on with his new job and stuff. And during this time, how did you have any kind of other job that you worked at while you were doing this, or would you just?
So there were different phases. When we went from the idea to, let's say, to manufacturing, that happened while I was still at my previous job. And then I lost that job. I was offered to be in other interviews. But then the days passed and I just didn't feel the motivation to apply. And then I realized that my heart wasn't there. So I decided to go full time. So maybe for the next 2 or 3 years, I was full time with the company. And I don't remember if the last months I was already working part time for another startup, maybe.
But how did you survive? Had you built a big savings going into this and just lived off
I
of
had
that?
some savings. Yeah, so I had a severance package. With the severance package, let's say I was maybe about 50 or 60% of where I wanted to be. My plan was always to quit the company and go full time. But this happened before I was, I guess, ready. So I had some savings, and then when I ran out of savings, I got a line of credit. So that's how I did it.
Okay, so where did this leave you? Did this leave you in a disillusioned in a ton of debt, or did you just say, "I'm going to learn from this," and
A little bit of everything. That's been everything. So you read. Looks like you've read the book, right?
Yeah, but they haven't.
What? Yeah. Where does that leave me? Where do we live without too many spoilers? So I'm in a good place now. So I'm an investor, and sometimes I talk about how my company didn't. So about a few weeks ago, I gave a talk, and I talked about the book and about how the company didn't work. And the first question that I got was, "Hold on. So if I read correctly, I understand that you're an investor. How did you go from being let's say a broke entrepreneur to being an investor?" So towards the end of the company, I ran into a friend who told me, a stranger at the time, a friend now, who told me he was coming from the Amsterdam Bitcoin conference. So I asked him everything about Bitcoin, and he explained it to me very patiently. I asked him, and it made a lot of sense to me because I thought the world is changing, and I could see how it was risky. But at the same time, I could understand what's called risk reward asymmetry.
Risk on
So
yes, on investment. Yep.
I could think this is very risky, but the reward could be really great.
Right.
In my head, I say if I compare it with gold, maybe this is 5 times riskier than gold, but the return could be 50x. I thought these are the kind of bets that I want to make. So again, that's when I got a line of credit. Half of the line of credit went for my costs of living and for the company, and the other half went to buy Bitcoin. Less than a year later, I was losing 70% of that. but then things turned around and it ended up doing well.
Oh,
That's a
okay,
little bit of
good.
a story.
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary. It's a high risk. Yeah. There are, other things like Roth IRAs that are less risky, but so it goes, yeah, they're your
Well,
risk factor, but your rewards could be really great, or they could be not there.
yeah, and actually, I went the opposite route. I had a 401k because I had been working in this company,
Right.
and I took everything out and I invested it in two startups. One disappeared, and the other one seems to be doing really well. So yeah, I guess I always
It's how
so
much you
it
can
has
take. Some people can't take that,
okay.
like they can't take that risk. It's just too much. But
It's
other
about
people thrive
people,
on it.
yeah, and it's about people and also about stages in life. Because maybe at a different stage I wouldn't have done that. But I thought if this works out, I could benefit for my whole life, and if it doesn't work out, maybe I just need to work 1 or 2 more years.
Right.
So I think it's about I don't know perspective or ambition or clarity or understanding what's good for you. Because yes, do you wanna stay comfortable? I guess you don't just want to do things that make you comfortable, but you also want to be able to sleep at bed. How much do you push? How much do you walk around your edges? So I think everyone is different. I don't know that I will have a recipe for everyone, but I would ask everyone to find the recipe that makes most sense for where they are in life.
Right. So this is a book you wrote so people could learn kind of from your mistakes that this did not you had the best of intentions, it just didn't go the way you thought it would. But then you became an author. Did you ever think you would write a book?
When I quit the company, when I closed down the company, all these memories and lessons and emotions started coming to me, and I started collecting them in a Google Doc, and I thought I'm going to write a blog post, but then very quickly I thought, this is much more than a blog post. I also thought, but I didn't, but the project of a book seemed like too far away. So that was not the original idea. But when the pandemic came, I was in Colombia, and I said that I really really want to do this. I feel that there's a story here that's not usually shared.
Right.
90% of companies don't survive a couple of years, and I think that I think the book is very original because it's a story not told, but that doesn't mean that it's not a story that happens all the time. I felt when I was in this happened in Austin. When I was in Austin, I met so many entrepreneurs who had all these ideas, who were so passionate, and I would think maybe a very 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 small percentage of them would have been what we call successful. So for all the rest, I would think they lived a very similar story to the one that I lived, in their own industry, in their own colors, with their own circumstances.
Right.
But this story of struggle and expectations not met, I think it's very universal.
Right. And I think I always say, you learn more from failure than you do from success. You learn, and just because you're, maybe, with certain things, if you're failing doesn't mean that that business or that whatever it is, whatever endeavor it is has to fail. It's just a time to reset your sails. Now, with your situation, because you had so much of that product, it's not that you could really do that much because it was the product itself that was the issue, right? So you could try to find the market and try to find the right people, but it wasn't there because they didn't want that product. So that was the big issue. But let's say it's a restaurant or something like that, and maybe it's failing, people can learn what to do differently. Maybe they have to add more things or take some things away or change a price. So failure's not a bad thing. You can still turn things around, and most people learn from failure and turn into success, right? So yeah, failure's not a bad thing. In fact, when my daughter was graduating with her master's, the person giving the address said, "I hope you fail." He told them all, "I hope you fail because I have learned." It was I think it was the president of Audible at the time, said, "I learned more from failure in my life than ever from success." And it made me who I am today. It made me the success I am. So he said, and I know it's a bad thing, but I hope you all fail. You know?
Yeah, of course, we never have the goal to fail. We actually do everything that
Right.
we can not to fail. But at the same time, the bigger message is that for me, the message is not that what's important is not failure or success. What's important is that you're honest. And I talk a lot about being self honesty. To start something that's meaningful for you, to give your best, not to lose yourself in the endeavor.
Right.
You need to be honest with how you're feeling when things are not going your way, which is very, very often. And you also need to be honest, very honest, to say something, to stop something that you really believe is not working and in which you've been working for all these years. Yeah, I think it takes a lot of, let's say, honesty to, let's call it, accept that failure. But it also takes a lot of trust. And I think that the message behind failure could be to be honest with yourself and give your best. If something doesn't work, you can pivot, like we were talking. You can look for other solutions. You can try to solve the problem in a different way. But I think even though the company doesn't work, that doesn't mean that the entrepreneur or the person won't, let's say, succeed. And I think that's when it's very important to do business, to differentiate between a business that may be failing and you as a person. You as a person, you're always growing and you're always learning. It's like a baby that's learning, a 1-year-old that's learning how to walk, and they fail 50 times. Are they really failing?
No.
I don't think so.
No. So, yeah, I know. And it's hard, though, because, like, if your business fails, you can't say, well, that means you're a failure. No, it's just because whatever happened, maybe you did some things, you could have done them better. But if you learn from it and you can grow from it, then you can turn that into something positive. And it's just the way of looking at things. You could be real negative or you can be real positive about it. And that's the whole mindset. But and then I like what you say. You have a word for tantrum. What is that word for tantrum?
Pataleta.
Yeah. You say it's okay. You could go have your tantrum, right? Be mad at the world for a minute, like, oh my gosh, and have this big thing. But then you get up and you rise again and do that. And I believe in that too. People will say, oh, you're so strong, you're so this, you're so that. Even the strongest people, you don't see them maybe when they have a weak point, but they get up. And the difference is they get up, dust themselves off, and they say, this is not going to define me. I'm going to rise above this. So, yeah, you say, go have your tantrum, go have, your yell, your scream, or like a child or whatever you want to call it, right? But then just get up and move on.
Yes, there's a couple of parts to that. Some people who want to be seen as the Superman or the Superwoman, they won't allow themselves to feel what they're actually feeling. And I think that's counterproductive because you don't want to be putting a show or an image that everything is great when you're falling inside. So I think you need to be very honest with what you're feeling and then find a way. If you want intimacy, find a way for you to release what you need to release. But don't abandon yourself. Don't try to fool yourself into thinking that everything is great and it's happy. When you're feeling bad, because if not, you're going to create a disconnect between your mind telling you everything is great and your body that's raging with emotion.
Right.
So you need that release. And then the second part is that we are in a new society in which because it's okay to be vulnerable. Some people are they're mistaking this being vulnerable with blaming others for how they feel and pointing fingers. So we need to be self-responsible with how we feel, but we also need to be self-responsible with what we act. So this is not about not performing your job because you have an emotion or blaming someone else. This is about taking the emotional care that you need to liberate and then be fully accountable and fully responsible for how you feel. Because again, I'm not sure that this point is coming across. I've seen in this world all these talking about mental health, then people are pointing fingers to other people. My mental health is not great because of you.
Right.
And then where does your ownership of your own well-being stand? This is about you being responsible for how you feel, you doing what you need to take care of yourself, and then also you doing what you need to take care of your business.
Right. Yeah. And it's up to us. You can't say, and blame other people. But yeah, you talk about also taking care of yourself, exercising. And I'm a big proponent of that. Sometimes I get so busy and I think, oh, I can't go on a bike ride today. And I tell myself, no. Mm-hmm. I've got to make the time for that because, it's easy to start putting your health and everything last. Okay. But you come back so much stronger. So when I go on that bike ride, then I may feel at the moment like, oh gosh, it's going to break what I'm doing and I should be doing this. But then you go on and you come back, energized and you see things differently. So we really have to, put in that time to our bodies. It's the only body we have, eat right, take the time, don't sacrifice ourselves in a quest to, either a business or what, even if it's taking care of our families and stuff, don't put yourself on the back burner. Because then you're going to be no good to anyone.
And if you do it in a conscious way, meaning for a certain amount of time, in a certain degree, because of course we all need to make sacrifices, but there's a point in which you're just abusing yourself and mistreating you and abandoning yourself, and you don't want to get to that point because you're going to be resented, you're not going to be productive, and you're not doing any good to anyone, especially yourself.
Yeah, and then you're going to resent people, oh, I can't do this or something. I always put myself, hear it all the time, right? People say, I always put myself last. I don't go this, I don't do that. And you only have one life. It's not a dress rehearsal. We're not guaranteed 1 minute. So we should be making the most of what we can make. And I think looking more positively at things is something that I strive to do. Like one of my friends yesterday, she was in a line and she said, oh gosh, this line is so long and I don't know when I'm going to get out of here. And I said, you know what? Maybe you're supposed to be there. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, maybe, you need to be there because if you were out there, something might happen to you. Like if we start thinking about things in a more positive thing, not that we're stuck there on that line, but we're supposed to be there. We're right where we're supposed to be. Something you have no control over. You don't have control. What are you going to mow the people down in the line, So yeah, I try, and it's a struggle because I know if we're late or something but to try to look at things more positively, that's something I am consciously trying to do.
Yeah, we all have these ideas about how things should be, how we want them to be, but life is not necessarily exactly how you want it to be. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that I just came from a 1 month in a meditation retreat in Manzanillo in Mexico with in the Asia Meditation Center. And one of the things that I've been saying myself more is that during the day, there's usually 2 or 3 things that bother me. And instead of dropping them, meaning letting them go in the moment, I carry them in my head, and then the thing is over. And half an hour later or an hour later, I'm still arguing in my mind with something that's not happening anymore.
Right.
So that's something that I've been paying a lot of attention, not to suffer reality,
right,
just because it's not how I would like it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's something if we can get past that, it will be much happier. Things are not going to be perfect for us, and we just have to sometimes, I know my husband will say sometimes, if you think about something right away, you want to say something, maybe something happens and you want to turn and say something. But if you just wait, just consciously say, let me wait 20 minutes and see after 20 minutes, am I still going to want to say something about, some car in traffic or whatever it is? Is that really going to be important? A lot of times it isn't, you know what I mean? And it can get you from getting upset about things and reacting so quick. And my brother, who's an attorney, he always says, write the email, but put it in the drafts. Put it in your draft pile, sleep on it, because if you really need to send that email, you can do it the next morning.
Yeah, and you don't want to be sending those emails when you are not writing the email. And I mean, what is really writing that email is your rage, your anger, your frustration.
Yeah.
Yeah, your emotions are writing that email.
Right.
And you don't want to you don't want to be sending that charge
No.
to someone else. It can feel liberating for a second because it's like you're releasing the charge, but but then you need to ask your question: what's my main goal? To just release a charge and produce some chaos, or resolve a situation?
Right.
You need to be careful what you really want to be accomplishing.
Right, and sometimes you can release it just by writing it, even handwriting it. And some people light it on fire. You know, they have a little ritual.
Yeah.
They'll put those feelings down and light them on fire, and like it's cathartic to them. But yeah, sometimes I think we've all written an email or sent a text that we're sorry for, right? In 10 minutes, said, I wish I had waited 10 minutes, right? So before I did that. So, but as long as we're learning from it, yeah, I mean, you can write down things if they make you feel better, but you don't have to share everything, and you don't have to send everything,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and sometimes there's more, and you could still send that email, but it would be a different version, more toned down, or sweeter, or more looking for solutions rather than looking to point fingers. We could be having more in mind that we want to solve a solution rather than that we want someone to feel bad because they did something to us. It's very different how that email will look like.
Right. And, and a lot, I don't know if this happens to you, a lot of times in the moment, in the heat of things, especially with women and men, somebody could be saying something and the person misunderstands it completely. And the idea behind it later on, when they say, no, I said that because of this, it's like, oh my gosh, and I didn't think of that, right? And we don't always hear what the other person is saying. And that's why sometimes some therapists say, when you get like that, just repeat back to the person. But that's not always the easiest thing to do. Like, oh, I hear you're saying this. Is that right? But sometimes in the heat of the moment, we can say these things are good. In the heat of the moment, people don't always practice it. But we should try more, because I think there's a lot of miscommunication that causes problems that we perceive that are there, but they're not even there. We're just miscommunicating,
Yeah, sometimes we could see as someone could come to us with really good intentions, but offer us a solution that we don't like, and there's lots of different ways to interpret that. Where we could say they're bad, they're evil, they're not considerate, but maybe something happened that we're missing. So we really don't know what's the whole story. We only get to know outside of the story, and I guess it's often good to
like
a bigger picture.
One of your people in here, you went through something like, you're like, why did she lead me on about this thing if she had no intention of following through? And you went through a whole little dialogue with yourself, right? About why would she do that, and why would certain people do that? And it can seem like that we don't know the other side of it, what they're thinking. And sometimes people just do crappy things. I mean, I think we've all had people that we've gone out of our way to help, and then they just act like, you don't even hear from them or see them again. And you just have to reconcile that you did your best for that person, and that's all you can do. But yeah, we're always trying to find out sometimes why someone does something. Could be something that's totally not even related to us, that's something way bigger in their life, so. But it's important to have that dialogue if you have to, like you did in here, if it makes you feel better.
Yeah, I mean, in the store. So one of the stories that I share is that there was a toy store in Austin, and my friends who have kids, they were all telling me that I had to be in this store. So for a couple of years, I tried to get a meeting with the owner. Finally, I got the meeting with the owner. I was super excited about it. I prepared a lot. And then when I get there, I'm going to show her my toys. And then she told me, no need to take them out of the bag. And I couldn't believe it. And she told me that she already knew that she wasn't interested. And I said, but how could you know? And she said, I saw them on your website, and they have too much color, or they're too colorful, and they're too branded. And I couldn't believe that I left that meeting without even have a chance to
show,
speak. That's how I took it. But sometimes now I will also share that I'm in a different position. Sometimes people come to me and ask me for requests, and I wonder what is worse: not giving someone the opportunity of not explaining something that you're not interested in, or letting them explain even though you know that you're not interested in, right? So sometimes you don't really know when to stop something.
Right. Yeah. No, I hear that too, because a lot of times we'll listen to a sales pitch or something that we're not interested in because we don't know how to eloquently get out of it. We don't want to be rude. So we'll listen to something knowing full on we're not at all interested in that, right? So yeah. So are we wasting their time? What's ruder to say, like, because sometimes my husband will very abruptly be like, we're not interested. And I'll say sometimes like, oh, that's really rude though. But is it better that this guy doesn't go on for 3 hours thinking that we're interested, right? So, it's that happy trying to find a balance right there. So it's to tell somebody that. So I do try to tell someone as quickly as I can. I say, because they'll always call me about my website or something on the phone. Oh, I said, no, that's okay. I've got it under control. Thank you. It's just in a nice way, but I'm not going to listen to this big spiel about it. So I think that's important. I think also, like you were saying in your book, that sometimes you were going into these very, very long presentations and then they were saying no. And I just think, from that point, sometimes people just tune it out when something gets too long, and things should be really brief, because the more passion we have for something, we feel like we have to tell people everything about that product, okay? All at once. And it's like, they don't know anything about it. So you don't want to overwhelm them. And that's a problem. Even when we talk about cases here on the channel, it can be overwhelming to learn all these facts. But then you'd say, if I brought 5 facts, it seems like nothing on the case. But to somebody that doesn't know anything, that's a lot. So I think, with you're saying your 2-hour presentations, it's always an art to get maybe something within 20 minutes that capitalizes on the most important things and makes them feel your passion for that before boring them. Oh gosh, when is this guy going to stop? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Each case is different. Yes, I think I had a lot of passion, and the passion I think was obvious for everyone. What I didn't have was a business. And this particular person this is a story that I shared in the book. I don't know if I shared this, but I think, again, I don't remember if I shared this in the book, but he told me, you remind me of a friend who's an inventor, who's very passionate about what he does. But pretty much he comes up with things that he loves, that inventors are more idea people than business people. And sometimes I felt a little bit like that I had my idea, I had all my passion, I did everything that I could, but I wasn't able to
execute it.
To build a business. And I don't want to be out of my I wasn't able to build a business. It doesn't mean that maybe some other product or idea or in another circumstances I wouldn't have done it. But yes, I knew I had a lot of passion. But sometimes I didn't really know what the best steps were for execution.
Right. And when you learn more, you do better. And I just think about everything as a learning process, and it doesn't mean it's wasted. A lot of people will get very upset and be like, "Oh gosh, I wasted all this time," or whatever. But it's not. Nothing is wasted if you learn from it, and you can become better because of it.
Yeah.
So
because
I think that's
because this way of looking at the past, it's a little bit violent. What makes sense is, or what's important is that you gave your best, with your intellectually, emotionally, with your effort, with your energy, and then you learn. Because everything that doesn't succeed, is it a waste? Then that's just paralyzing. That's actually what creates fear of failure, and then people become paralyzed. You just need to act, and not very very. There is a sentence that I liked from the CEO of Coinbase. I've heard him say this a lot of times. Action produces information.
Right.
Again, action produces information. Sometimes you need to act to realize that what you're doing doesn't work. When you test it, when you get feedback, when you see, as you start working on it, then you realize, oh, this is not what I imagined, or there's a better way of doing this. Answers are not going to come by doing nothing.
Yeah.
So you need to act to learn.
Exactly. And you don't want anybody to be, well, I think it's a good book because you're showing, look, I failed at this, but that doesn't mean that's the end of my story. And it doesn't mean that I didn't go on to do other things, because there's so many people that stay exactly where they are in life out of fear of failing. And nobody should ever be afraid to fail, because we have to look at it in a different way. If you fail at something, it's not the end. Failing we should lose some of the connotation. It's not like a test at school, okay? So it's you still have the ability. It's just reset your sails, and it can point you in another direction that you never would have gone into if you didn't fail. So if we start looking at failure as something positive, and that's like why this guy gave this keynote speech at the graduation and said the failure is what made him the success, we have to start thinking of it like that.
Yeah, the problem with startups, and I think the startups and founders, they do something that they really care about. So they care about their startup, but they also care about what the startup is about. So they care about both things. Then they put all their time, they put their money, they put their energy, they tell all their friends, they tell all their family, they sacrifice their holidays. Pretty much it's all they do. And then it's the only thing they have. And they are so close to it that they almost merge. So they almost, they identify, and they it's very hard for them to distinguish both. And because they think they turn into the startup. So if the startup fails, it means I'm a failure, because they're so so meshed together, aligned, so tangled and entangled. That's where I think mental health comes, to be able to have this capacity to distinguish between my startup and me. Yes, my startup didn't succeed, didn't go well, but that should not tell the same story about you. The story about you could be that you tried your best,
you learned. Yeah, you learned.
Yeah, you learned. You brought in the people that you think were gonna help. You put yourself out there. You grew so much. Now your world opened up. It's like, I think to end up having the same, let's say, conclusions for a startup that didn't work and for the founder who gave their best as a failure, I think it's very. I think it's not right. I think it's very, very messed up.
I understand it, because you can identify too much with that failure if that's that everything intertwined. I hear what you're saying completely. Now, if you had to leave people with this, what would you want to add? Anything that you want to let everybody know? I have your link to your book is up. It's in the video description. It's on. I put it there so they can go there and check it out. But anything else you want to add?
Well, I would love a couple of things. I love the word trust, self-honesty, and trust. Again, even though their startup doesn't work, and hopefully it works. We talk a lot about failure because it's a common scenario, but hopefully you will succeed. And one of the things that I realized from my successful entrepreneur friends is that even though they succeeded, they resonated with the book as much, because it wasn't easy for them either.
Oh yeah, no.
And sometimes, and even to succeed, it's 100 times harder than what they thought. So, so I really hope that your audience, your entrepreneurs audience, they give it a chance. I would love to hear from them. I don't know if you have my website. I will say it. It's Ricardo.
I'll put it. Is it Ricardo, your name? Is it your name?
My name and last name with an H. Ricardo Jiménez H. .com. I would love to hear from them. And thank you very much, because I really enjoyed being in the show. It looks like you really did a lot of homework. I'm glad that I came as prepared as you were.
Well, yeah, I read the book, and so yeah, like you said, I relate because a lot of people think there's like overnight successes, and I always say, whoever you think is an overnight success, or because sometimes you have a success and people go, oh wow, look at you, you did that, faster. Is it? You don't know what went into like whatever you do. There's no overnight success. There's so much work in it. So I think that's why you say people can relate to it, because there is. And you had a lot of great things, except it was the things with the product. But if you learn from it and you move on, it's not a failure, and you're helping other people with the book, and now you're an author. So I mean, you should feel good about it, and just move from there. And we just have to give ourselves a break. You did a great thing with the lemons. I think it's your story of turning lemons into lemonade. So yeah, this is the ultimate. In fact, this guy kind of looks like a lemon here. So I think
great point.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
so you
point,
turned it into lemonade, and that's the best you can do. And I enjoyed speaking with you, and you'll have to come back and see us.
I would love that. So where do we do that? Where is that?
You come back anytime. Okay, just let me know. You got my email, and you know where I am.
I'm very grateful. I really enjoyed it because it was a really deep conversation about the book. Sometimes I talk a lot about everything, but you had all these questions about the book, and it's very touching. Yeah, it's very touching for me. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. It was a very nice conversation. Nice to meet you, and I'll see you again. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks to you.
Bye. Okay, that was very nice. That was good conversation. I will put his website in the video description as well. The link to the book is there, and I hope that you guys will check it out. I will talk to you guys later. Thank you so much for joining us, and everybody take it easy, and have a great day. It's kind of cold and overclouded, overcast. I can't speak today, but thank you so much for coming in, everybody, and I'll see you later on. Okay, bye now. Love you guys. God bless.